Welcome to another episode of TomBecka.com, and the podcast just keeps on growing. Thank you all very much for spreading the word, telling your friends. We've been listened to all over the country, all over the world, like 52 different countries have listened to podcasts on this page, and I do appreciate you spreading the word and letting people know about the interesting people in this community that you can meet here every week. And today is another interesting man. This Scott McKenzie is a man who's searching for some answers, searching on, who is God, what does God want us to do? Like most of us, trying to find out just what the answers are and how they pertain to him and how people get the message. And he wrote a nonfiction book. And this nonfiction book, I don't have any nonfiction authors on this podcast because, well, what do you say about it? Except this nonfiction book has a theme to it that I think is universal. And we don't talk so much about the book in this podcast as we do about that universal theme. But Scott McKenzie, another one of the interesting people you're going to meet here at TomBecka.com.
The book is called The Book of Jerusha Rising.
Which means what?
Which basically what it's about is it's an introduction to a character, introduction to the characters and everything. It's about her coming basically to the world, coming of age, and basically in this book. Basically what it is I actually had called it The Rising to begin with, and basically it's just about her suddenly coming to the world and the world becoming aware of her.
Oh, no. Is Jerusha, did I pronounce it right, Jerusha?
That's right. It is Jerusha.
Is Jerusha a godlike character? Who is Jerusha?
No, Jerusha is actually not a godlike character. She's a woman that has mysteriously appeared out of nowhere, but she has the same failings and the same overall demeanor as any human being. It could be basically you or me. And that's basically what I decided to go with, because, in most of the stories that you read about God, most of the stories you read about Jesus or any of the other religious figures, it's like these are people that are perfect. They're people that are not, they have no failings. They're perfect. They're beautiful. They're absolutely wonderful people. Jerusha is not that way. Jerusha just kind of appeared out of nowhere. She's a volunteer. She walks with a limp. She's got a handicap. She's of mixed race, and just basically somebody that you could relate to, just sitting there and having a conversation with.
I'm reminded of that song, what if God was one of us, sort of a song, but you say she's not a godlike character, so she just appears out of minute. So how is this different? Is this, I have not read the book yet. Mm-hmm. So is this a situation where she is just a stranger that appears, from out of town, like an old Western sort of a thing? Is she from outer space? How does she just mysteriously appear?
No, she just basically comes from out of town. It's revealed later on in the book that she's actually been doing volunteers. She just does volunteer work. That's all she does. All of her needs are met by people that, are bringing her in and everything. Everybody speaks very highly of her. She's worked some very subtle miracles before she came to this point and everything, and that becomes, becomes revealed basically later on in the book itself.
Okay, let's listen to what the point of the book is. I mean, what are you trying? I mean, this is a fictional book, obviously, but
right.
What are you trying to accomplish with this?
I'm trying to accomplish with this that basically, the thing is what I'm seeing in religion. This is what's happened. I see out here, everybody's sitting there and saying that, well, we know God, you have to act this way. You have to be this way. You basically have to, basically this is what the Bible says. This is what God is, and really what it comes down to is nobody really knows. I mean, how can you know the unknowable? Jerusha comes in and it's basically all about, minister to everyone, be kind to everybody, not just, people that are being religious or anything like that. Be kind to everyone, accept everyone, tolerance, kindness, ripples, do good things. It ripples outward.
I've always told people my own personal faith is I believe in God. I'm just not so arrogant to believe that I know what he, she, or it is or really wants. I'm doing the best I can, but we know none of us really know.
Exactly. And the thing is that's one of the things like with Jerusha. She is basically telling everybody when she's coming out, and this creates a big stir in the community. It creates stirs because she comes out and she says, basically, God is all, not that God is a man, that God is the Father, or anything like that. God is an embodiment of everything.
Are you trying to? Okay, what are you trying to accomplish with this? In other words, where does this come from with you? I mean, tell me your background that got to the point that you would write a book like this.
The thing is what happened is some 16 years ago, I'm one of these people that I basically look at, I like to learn. So I was basically looking at a lot of different religious organizations, going in, learning about them and everything and all that, not necessarily wanting to become, one of them, one of the followers or anything like that. But in this sermon that I was sitting there, and the reverend up there was going on about how you need to do this, just pounding the pulpit. You need to do that. Otherwise, God will strike you down. You're going to burn in hell. I look around at all of the people in there, and everybody's got fear in their eyes. Well, what I did is I just sat there and I asked myself, what would happen if somebody like Jesus actually walked the earth today? How would these people react to him? How would the religions react to him? How would the media react to this person? How would, the medical society react to this person, because this person comes in and starts working these wonderful miracles and curing all these people? How would the government react to this person? It just opened up a whole can of worms that I was looking at. And, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think any of these people really know how they would react.
No. And I made a joke with all the politics going on right now with illegal immigration, that if Jesus came back today, he better have his papers. Otherwise, he'll be deported.
Right.
That's sort of, you're right. I mean, how would we react? Probably very similar to how they reacted back in biblical times. We don't understand it, we don't get it, so let's kill them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just the thing. The thing is, and there is a dark tone that's set right away in the first chapter of this book and everything, and you know where it's going to go. But the thing is you look at biblical, and I've done a lot of studying on the Bible and everything and all that. Looked at it, went through it and everything, just basically verse by verse. And, you look at the way that Jesus was back in that time, and you look at the Pharisees, you look at the, the religious leaders and everything, they hated him. It's like it was basically something that was set up, so that they could crucify him. They absolutely hated what he was saying to the people. In a lot of ways, that's kind of what's going on here in the Book of Jerusha as well.
Now, there have been people, I'm thinking in particular of L. Ron Hubbard, who was a science fiction author, and next thing you know, you've got the Church of Scientology. You're not going for something like this, are you? I mean, you're not looking to be a big spiritual leader with this book, or are you?
No, I'm not. Basically, the thing is all I'm trying to do is just basically open some eyes and make people realize that, we've kind of gotten to a point where it's like we put God in a box. So it's like we're basically cookie cuttering God, if that's a word. We're doing a cookie cutter version of God to fit every religion, and it's just kind of come to a point where it's like I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, that's kind of ridiculous to sit there and basically say you've got reverends up there saying that they have a direct line to God. And you know what? They don't. Nobody does. Nobody knows exactly what God is all about. You have to listen to within yourself.
But I could make the same argument. As you say, nobody knows. I would say, how do you know they don't have a direct line to God? How do you know that? I mean, if they're so sure they have a direct line to God, and you're so sure that they don't, who's to really say?
Well, that's just it. And it comes out in the book as well that, the thing is nobody really knows. I don't know. And I'm not going to say that I know,
But if somebody really did have that line to God, that's, that between God and them, isn't it? I mean, that's sort of the weird thing about this. Now, I tend to agree with what you're saying, but, well, it's possible God might go and say, okay, I'm going to pick that guy, and that woman, and you guys, spread the word, right?
Well, and I do think that there are probably people that are, in touch with God, but it's not the people that are going out and browbeating people for, doing this or doing that and everything and all that. There's a really good point in this book where I sit there and I basically have Jerusha give a televangelist a parable. And it's a parable about an atheist and a born-again Christian. And she talks about the atheist and how the atheist will basically do everything he can for his neighbor, basically goes down to the missions. He's doing, he's basically going out and, giving them food and everything and all that, giving money out of his pocket and everything, doing all these good things. It's just he doesn't necessarily believe in God. He's doing it because it's the human thing to do. Whereas you've got the born again Christian over here that's going out and then just basically crapping on his neighbor, cheating on his wife, doing all this nasty stuff, stepping on people's backs. And then the thing is what he does is he goes to church every Sunday and says, you know what, I'm born again, I'm free, and everything. Well, she basically makes the point that what does God want? Is God going to take the person that's going to be the born again Christian that goes out and basically craps on his neighbor, or is he going to take the atheist that's actually doing something, even though the atheist doesn't believe in him and everything and all that?
This sounds like one of those great conversations you get into in college. You might pass a bong around, and next thing you start talking about what is God, what if God is, we're just a speck on the fingernail of God. I mean, you get into weird conversations like that sometimes. Do you think that if you take a look at the traditional religions, no matter what they may be, that they do put that in such a capsulized form, if you will, just to make it more palatable to the masses, more understandable to average people? Because if you really go and think about it and wonder about it, it does sort of blow your mind. If all you think is, God just, wants you to do this, and he's in a white robe, and, and there's a big pearly gate when you die, if that makes you happy, that's just easier than trying to wander around all the time thinking, well, what is the meaning of life? What is going on, right? So, I mean, people find comfort in that stability, if you will. Don't you think?
Yeah, I do. And, that's not a problem. I think actually that's actually a good thing. Where I run into the issue is when it's like you're trying to proselytize to other people and trying to push your will off onto other people. And this gets into the legislation portion of it too, because it's like, that's what really sticks in my craw. And I think that's what really drove me to write this, is because all of a sudden you've got, a sudden wave coming up where it's like we're trying to push a religion onto people and everything. I mean, you look at people are saying, well, this country was founded on Christian values. But really, the thing is you get back down into it and everything and all that, and you look at a lot of the founding fathers. A number of our founding fathers weren't exactly the Christians that you would think that they were.
Yeah, no. I mean, Ben Franklin had a common law wife. Most of the best ideas came out of bars, which, yeah. That's another one, too. It's like, people always talk about founding fathers like it's a big monolithic, this is what the founding fathers want. Well, the founding fathers couldn't agree either. But people don't want to address that, It's
right.
like the founding fathers said, well, the founding fathers were as argumentative as we are today.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't get across to people. So what do you hope to accomplish with this book? I mean, look, it takes a lot of effort to put a book out like this.
I just want to make people think. That's all I'm doing. It's all basically just designed to make people think, about faith, basically, and maybe see a different viewpoint. It's like one of the quotes in the book, probably one of my all-time favorite quotes that I wrote in the book, was that God is a mountain and there are many ways up that mountain. And that's basically what I'm trying to get out there, that, perhaps Christianity isn't exactly as right as people think it is. Buddhism could be right. None of them are actually right.
My biggest fear is that the Hindus are right. And when I die,
I'm with you on that.
All that prime rib is going to be, oh, dear God, I'm sorry, I didn't know, that's one of my fears.
I'm with you on that.
But that's it. I mean, we don't really know. Now, when you say this, though, you're going to ruffle some feathers.
I do. I'm very aware that there are going to be some feathers ruffled and everything and all that. But you know what? The thing is it's like, I don't think that, I just couldn't sit by any longer and not say anything, because people weren't saying this and everything. People weren't looking at this. And I just can't sit by anymore and just let this go. I had to do something. So I created this character, and this character just kind of took off. one of the things about the character was, one of the things about the book is I'd actually put it down and I couldn't stop writing it. It's like there was something just pushing me to really write this.
Maybe God was telling you to write it.
Perhaps. Either that or it was my own OCD issues.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you written anything in the past? Have you done anything like this ever before?
I've been a writer since I was, even before I was 16 years old. I basically wrote my first novel when I was 16 years old. It's something that'll never see publication or anything like that. And I'll go back and I reread it when I start getting a big head, because basically it brings me right back down really quickly, because I realize how bad I really was at that time. But yeah, I've just been writing short stories, been writing stories. Did a couple forays into publishing, had one of the publishers actually steal my idea, and it just went south. And I won't go into that in detail, but it really just basically ruined me on the entire publishing world. So I just basically would do it on my spare time and everything and all that. Got to a point where I just, I finished the Book of Jerusha Rising a year and a half ago, and I just kind of sat there and sat on it and was like, okay, this is done. And then went on to my next project and everything and started doing that. Back in January of this year, my wife went out online and she found this publishing company, this startup publishing company called Arsenic and Lace Publishing Company. And she said, you know what? This just looks like this might be a good venue for this. You need to send this out to her.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm confused here, because you told me earlier that you wanted to get this out there. You think people need to have this discussion and you wanted to have this out. Yet after you were done, you just put it on a shelf for a year and a half?
I did. And that was just basically due to my complete distrust of the publishing companies. I just basically said, you know what, someday this will be out there. Someday this is going to be out there. It'll probably be after I die, like a lot of great authors in the past. Not saying that I'm a great author by any means, but the thing is I just basically thought, well, you know what, this will be out there somewhere. It's written now. I can put it aside. Somebody will find it someday and go on with it and everything, because I just really wasn't looking to publish it. It's more, I guess I shouldn't say that it was a catharsis thing for me, because of my frustrations with kind of the way that, people would act regarding religion, like they knew everything about it. And, really, again, I don't think a lot of people do. I think everybody's questioning, that's...
Oh yeah, that's the people that are just so sure do bother me. But even like Mother Teresa, questions. The new Pope, you look at the new Pope, he's questioning, and he's challenging things, which,
yes.
Is getting a lot of the faithful a little bit riled up. Also bringing other people to the discussion and saying, well, good, it's about time that we,
right.
start having some of these discussions about what,
right.
what life really is and what God really wants.
Right.
But you're right, there are those out there, and that's where wars start. And that's whether it be, I've gotten into trouble in the past with discussions with people when, I've had people say, well, where are the Muslims speaking out about, the terrorist Muslims? And then I'll say, yeah, where were the Catholics speaking out about the pedophile priests? Or where were the Baptists speaking out about the Fred Phelps? Where were the, Jews speaking out against policies
right.
other Jews take out sometimes, in the Middle East? People even asking these questions,
right.
It's like, no, well, it's one of our guys, so we can't say anything. We do have that mentality many times. It's part of our family, if you will. Our religion is part of our family. It's part of
right.
So we don't question, nor do we challenge, and sometimes that can bring bad things.
Right. Well, and that's just it. The thing is again, and this comes to me personally, it speaks to me personally, is I'm the type of person that I wanted to find out everything I could about the other religions, to find out. And it wasn't that I was seeking other religions. I'm perfectly happy with, kind of the way that I think and everything and all that. But the thing is I wanted to see what other people believed. I wanted to see what other religions believed, and I'm not talking just Christians. I went through a lot of the different Christian fields and everything, looked at it, went to their services, basically talked to their, to their leaders, talked to a bunch of different people in that. Hindus, I went to the Buddhists, the Muslims and everything. One of the really interesting things, and I don't know if I can say this or not, but Project Interfaith here in Omaha is fantastic. I mean, they have a marvelous program going, because the thing is they'll take you around to the various religious organizations, let you actually see the ceremonies going on and everything. It's just fabulous. I mean, I loved it.
And it is interesting to see. Although all these different religions, whether we're talking, I mean, I think one of the problems in the Middle East, I believe, is because the Jews and the Muslims are like two brothers that can't get along.
Exactly.
They're just too much alike in many regards, and as such, that's why they fight. And if you take a look at all the other religions, so many of them are based with the same basic principles. Love your neighbor as yourself, taking care of each other, and that sort of a thing. It's when people go and corrupt those religions where the trouble starts.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, and that's also a lot of what I see in Christianity too, as well, is it seems like there's a lot of corruption going on in there and corrupting the core principles of what Jesus was all about and everything. And I think that's what it is, I mean, and it's like you get into this book and everything, the Book of Jerusha, you just see that, she's actually living out the principles that Christ originally intended, which is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And she's not preaching to people about it. She's showing people basically how to live.
But you're not a theologian, a theologian, are you? You're not a theologian, or have you studied this in college or in depth? Oh, you have?
I have, yes. Yes, I've done a lot of study on it, done a lot of research on it. It's been...
I mean, just as a like structured study as in a university, or this is not just some little hobby of yours.
No, this is not some hobby of mine. This is basically just going in and, I mean, I've studied it, actually went to Catholic school, I mean, went through the theology courses there as well and everything to start this out. And, it was one of those things where it's like this just kind of the idea just kind of popped into my head. And it's like, something like this really needs to be written.
What has the response been so far from people? I know it's just out. What has the response been?
The response has been really actually surprising to me, because I thought that it would be more controversial than it is. It's very interesting. I'm getting a wide variety of people to look at this, and they've all come back to me and said, you know what, I may not agree with this, but you know what, there's this in here. I'm taking this out of it. There's different things in there that for everybody, basically. People can take things out. A good friend of mine basically said it very well. She said, you know what? This is one of those books that you read and you can take a bunch of stuff out of it and leave a bunch of stuff there with it and everything. I really haven't gotten any criticism, which really surprises me.
Is this a heavy read? Is it a light read? Is it, the sort of thing you might take with you on the beach for a summer? I mean, what kind of a mood do you have to be in to read this book?
It's one of those things where it's written on different levels. I mean, it's written so that you can read it and say, you know what, this was actually a very good story. Or you can go further into depth on it and really look deep into it and get a lot of meaning out of it, if you would like, and everything. But I would say that it'd probably be something that you would take on the beach, read, I mean, it would be something that, I would probably read it, I mean, think about it, think about what's in there and everything, what's being said, and then maybe ponder it just a little bit and everything.
Okay, so you think this is a book for people to ponder, to think, to maybe straighten out some ideas in their own head?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
You wrote the book.
Right.
What did you straighten out in your own head from the book?
You know what? It was a really, really, it's been a really interesting journey, because, I'd sit there, and I'm not a person that's given to, emotion really well. My wife will tell you that. I mean, I've sat there, but when I was writing this, it's like there were points in this where it just absolutely moved me to tears. I mean, I was just bawling my head off. Sometimes I'd walk out of the den and my wife would look at me and say, what's wrong with you? And I'd just say, and then I'd have to relate exactly what happened and everything. But basically what this book has done is it's taught me, as I've been going along, that, you know what? I wasn't doing what I could for the community. I wasn't going out and doing the volunteer work and doing the different things that I could be doing and everything to help make the ripple effect to actually make people's lives better. So that said, what it's done for me is it's actually made me realize, you know what? I got to do more within the community, basically, to make the community a better place. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going out and I've been volunteering down at the mission. I've been doing, various things, donations, charitable work and stuff and everything like that, because that's what it's all about, I think, ultimately in the end.
They say that you don't talk about religion in polite company. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Because I think it's just basically one of those things where, this is what I've seen. It's one of those things where it's something that really, in my opinion, should be a matter of, your own faith. It should be something that makes you who you are, and not something that should be worn on your sleeve and going out and preaching. I've had people come into the place where I work, tell me that basically, you better start, going to church on Sundays, because otherwise, bad times are coming and everything, and you're going to be struck down if you're not, this way. You know what? That's my personal thing. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be out there on the sleeve of, worn on the sleeve for everybody to see.
Why not? Didn't Jesus say, don't shine your light under a bushel basket? I'm paraphrasing, but isn't that basically what he said? Go out and preach the word?
Yes, but on the other hand, if somebody doesn't want it, you know what? Don't sit there and try to force the issue. It's like Jesus also said, just walk away and shake your sandals of the sand and everything and walk away. And really that's what I think people need to do. If people don't want to hear this word, then you know what? It's not your duty to sit there and browbeat them into hearing this.
Do you think, now we haven't had much religion then during the Obama administration, but religion played a big part in the Bush administration. Do you think that the country is better off one way or the other? Without even getting into the politics, because besides talking about religion, don't talk about politics in polite company too. But do you think that because religion was so much more a part of one administration than the other, does that
the funny thing about it is, and I've seen this in both administrations, I'll be honest with you, I'm more of a libertarian and independent than I am, a Democrat or Republican. What I saw on both sides of it and everything is, it's, neither one was that good. It's like you had on the Bush side, that polarized the country. You come down on the Obama side, it's polarizing the country. So it's like, it doesn't matter which way you go. The one thing that I will say, though, that I do think is rather humorous is for all the conservative politicians out there, and I'm not bagging on the Republicans on this, but I do get a kick out of the conservative politicians out there who are saying that, less government, yet they want to come back around and legislate the moral values. Yeah. So it's like, how is that less government?
No, they don't want less government. They want their government.
Right. That is exactly it.
They want their government, and that's really what it boils down to.
Right.
I agree with you. I'm pretty much a libertarian also, which means that I want the government out of my life in all aspects. And
right.
That includes,
faith,
the bedroom, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else, as long as I'm not killing somebody or, mugging or robbing or stealing, you're not hurting anybody else, then it's nobody else's business.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, that's one of the things why I'm a huge George Carlin fan. So it's like, I just love the way that he said it, don't kill and, don't steal. Mm-hmm. And there you go. You've got it. Yeah. That's religion. You're done.
like anything else, though, everybody wants more market share.
It's
like hey, we're selling this car. It's nice that we're selling the Model T. Mm-hmm. But boy, if we had the Ford Focus and the Pinto and the Mustang and the all the different models, now we can have a bigger market share. And that's sort of where it grows. And the same thing, whether it be government, religion, whatever. Right. It's just human nature to want more, isn't it?
Right, exactly. Well, and that's just it. And in the book that is addressed. Particularly birth control is addressed at points in there and everything and all that. And just various things on how the church is growing, how they want to grow their coffers, and everything, how they want to grow their flock, so that it's about control, basically. When you get right down to the brass tacks, religion ultimately was created by man. It was ultimately created by man, to understand something that they could not understand.
I don't know where I heard this quote, but I don't know who said it first, but it was a man created God in his likeness.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's sort of, yeah.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing, I mean, it's like you're looking at all of the scientific discoveries now and everything that are coming up and things that we're finding out about the universe as a whole. I mean, the thing is if they find life on another planet, you're looking at basically what happens to God created man in his own image and everything at that point, but again, I think there'll be people that'll bury their head in the sand on this and everything, just like they're doing with the Big Bang Theory, that they've sat there and they're basically coming to prove as being, actuality and everything more and more. But you've got 51% of Americans that are saying that we don't believe this, we don't buy this and everything, never mind that the evidence is there.
But you see, now here with me, and this is a pet peeve of mine, whether you believe in evolution, whether you believe in creationism, it doesn't matter how we got here. The question is, what are you going to do now that you're here? Okay,
right.
And that to me is the issue. And I think we, as whether it be the scientists or the religious people, they spend so much time worrying about how we got here.
Right.
Forget about that. How do we stay here? What are we going to do now that we are here? And that to me is the question that I think needs to be addressed. And the hell with whether it's the Big Bang Theory or God took 7 days with nothing else to do and said, boom, there you go. I mean, either way, I guess it was 6 days, because on the seventh day he rested. So, I don't care either way. We're here now. What are you going to do?
Well, and the thing is being a person that is basically a science geek and everything and all that. I do like the idea of trying to figure out where we're at. However, the philosopher side of me is saying, you know what? Take the time that we do have, and I do agree with you on that. Take the time that you do have and actually make this world into a better place.
Why do you care how we got here? Why do you care? You say, as a scientist guy, that, a geek like that, you really do care how it happened. Why?
Well, the reason being is because the thing is it's just a natural curiosity. I mean, it's a curiosity on that, I mean, just an understanding. It's one of those things where it's like, I want to understand basically where we came from, how we came about, why we came about, that sort of stuff, and every scientist will basically tell you the same thing on that.
So this is all just more of your quest for spirituality.
In a scientific sort of way, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. But you see, now for me, and I'm not that bright. I'll admit, I'm not that bright. But I always love it whenever I hear a scientist say, oh, this rock is 82 million years old. And I say, how do you know that? Well, carbon data. Well, what? I mean, what is that? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so some scientists came up with some plan that they think says this is how old it is. But the reality is, we don't really know. I mean, it's very similar to me, people's faith, in religion.
Right.
It's the same sort of thing. It's like, okay, that's what you believe, but I'm not convinced that's really what it is. Or maybe I'm just too much of a doubter. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I understand that, I mean, there's doubts on it and everything and all that. I'm just looking at it, straight from, it's a scientific way of doing it. They've got it till somebody comes up with something a little bit better and everything. And I think they will eventually, I mean, given the way that science is, given the way that innovation is, whether it'll be in America or not, I don't know. I mean, just given the way that we're going towards our science and towards our innovation, I don't know, but I would like to see that. I would like to think that sometime, somewhere, somebody's going to come up with a really good way of actually finding out how this all works.
On the other hand, one time scientists thought the world was flat.
So did the church.
I know. Yeah, okay. Touche. Good point. Good point. No, and I'm not anti-science either, but at the same time, I find sometimes the correlation there. Mm-hmm. Maybe going back to the whole Muslim-Jew argument, maybe the real pro-scientists and the real pro-religion people are also
wrong.
Two brothers that just are too much alike to get along. Carl Sagan had a quote that I found very interesting. He said, "Look, put God in the equation anywhere you want. That doesn't take away the science." And I sort of, I'm paraphrasing that, but I sort of agree with what he's saying there. Because I think you can have a strong faith. At the same time, you don't just dismiss what science is showing us, because it is all together. It's all part of whatever, was created for us to be here.
Well, and the thing is, too, I mean, having looked at the way the universe is put together, and I worked in nuclear energy for a time and everything and all that, and got, a lot of science out of that as well. Having looked at how everything's put together, and, I mean, there's going to be people out there that are going to say, well, you wrote this book, you're, I mean, what are you, an atheist or, this or that and everything? No, I mean, I look at the way the universe was put together, the way everything was put together. There has to be a mind behind it because it's too logical. So it's like there has to be what that mind is. I don't know. I mean, nobody really does. I mean, it's like that's the beauty of it. And chances are we never will.
I do hope that right before I die, I know what the answer is. Now, right, like a minute or two before you die, right there you go. Either you go into some big wonderful heaven place or you're worm food. I'd like to at least know for a minute. Although the people that I've known who have died. Mm-hmm. And have had near-death experiences. When they've had a near-death experience, they're very peaceful with it. And then when they know that death is near, there's a calmness about it. And if you ever have a chance to talk to hospice nurses, they're some of the most fascinating people you're ever going to meet, and some of the nicest people you're ever going to meet because they deal with this all the time. And so that goes into the whole other realm about what else is out there, which I'm in no hurry to find out right away. Okay, so the book again is called
The Book of Jerusha Rising.
The Book of Jerusha Rising.
Yes.
And available, I'm sure, at all the usual places, right?
Yes.
Bookstores, download.
Well, Amazon eBooks first.
Okay, it's Amazon
eBooks.
Yes,
Amazon eBooks first.
Okay.
Yes, and then if it does well, then we start moving into the regular bookstores and everything and all that.
You're not having a hardcover published?
Not yet. No, not yet. The publisher's actually, she's going to see how it goes and everything and all that. I mean, this is a venue. She thinks it's great. Arsenic and Lace Publishing, they think that it's just great. They think it's one of the best books. I mean, she's come back and told me it's one of the best books she's ever read. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm too close to the subject and everything and all that. So I'm going to be critical of my own work there.
Let the public decide what it is. And that. So that's fascinating too, and how the whole book industry has changed.
Yes.
It's like, used to be, you get a publisher, it's out in hard copy, and then if it does well, you get paperback.
Yes.
And then, but this is going to be out in an ebook, and if people start downloading it, they start buying it, then I said, just on Amazon, can I get it for my iPad and everything else?
It will be, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It'll be basically anything, any way that you can get it on ebooks, I mean, it will be out there. And
downloadable, okay.
Yes.
I don't know that we've solved anything here. I don't know that we've come to any real conclusions about what God is or isn't. But it is, I think, an argument that, or at least a discussion that needs to be had. Because I think when people are so positive that God is on their side, that's how wars start.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the points that I'm trying to get across in this book is, what the thing is it's like, here is a person that has come that preaches complete peace, and complete love for your fellow human being. And you know what? People are looking at her like she's crazy because of this and everything. Like, how could you actually love somebody that you hate and everything, or somebody that has a different viewpoint than you have? How could you love somebody? How could God accept somebody like that? And that's the point that she's trying to make. And, what kills me is I actually have had ministers tell me that, the thing is God's not going to accept you because of this and everything and all that. If I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing and everything, then I guess, God would accept that.
I told the story in a previous podcast, actually, but I spent some time in Israel and I did a tour of one of the Jewish settlements. And I'm talking to the lady, very nice woman. We're talking, and I'm seeing, the houses and all that, and what's going on there. And I asked her. I said, I was raised Catholic. But I'd like to live here. Could I live here? She said, no. I said, well, why not? I pay my taxes. I mow my lawn. Why couldn't I live here? She goes, God does not want you here. And it's like, that's where you get in these problems. That's where you get in the fights, and that's where you get,
right.
Because I honestly got very angry at her.
Right.
I mean, I didn't punch her or yell at her or anything, but deep down inside there was a real anger. It's like, how dare you tell me God doesn't want me here?
Exactly.
That you're special. I mean, that God wants you and not me. I don't understand that.
Right, and that's the thing. I don't understand it either, and that's why, that's basically the impetus that just pushed me to really write this book, because it's like, you know what, people need to understand. There's a multitude of different ways of doing things for humanity, and God, I don't think, my opinion, doesn't judge a person by what religion they're practicing, or no religion for that matter. I think that if anything, God's going to judge you by your deeds and what you've done here for people, to people and everything and all that. Granted, nobody's perfect, on this, even the character in